Great. Hey, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, and with me today is Karin Druckenmiller. We were having some technological flitting about, but here we are live and all is well. I am very delighted to bring Karin on board. I'm going to make her painfully go through reintroducing herself, but I've known Karin for a lot of years, first as a client and then now as a coaching student. So, and you've got a really interesting background. So fire away, Karin. Welcome.
Yes. Well, obviously, I'm one of your certified holistic pet health coaches. I have my degree in biotechnology. I worked in EPA water testing for about 7 years, and I am a water testing expert. Obviously, I was a client of yours before I became a coach. And I've been a Crockpot cook since somewhere around 2017. So it's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
First early adopter.
Yes.
Cool. And how we met, you have all of these beautiful bully dogs that you have. Exactly. Water quality is a whole live show by itself, and we should probably dig into that at some point, because the truth is frightening. But you've been adopting and rescuing bully breeds for a long time, and that's part of how we first met. So what's your biggest experience and problem been with that breed?
Well, obviously lumps and bumps. That's why we're here. I've had the unfortunate experience of having at least 3 that had mast cell. And then I've had a couple of others that came down with hemangiosarcoma, metastasized breast cancer. So I believe I've had 6 altogether.
Wow. And it's just awful, because unfortunately that has become so common for these breeds. But you've also had, we worked through how to support these guys for your own guys, but you've been able to really take that and turn that into supporting other pet parents with bullies. So that really kind of became your passion. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I remember feeling lost. My first dog, when she was diagnosed with cancer, and basically the veterinarian said, well, just take her home. You probably have about 6 months and love up on her. And that was it. She had nothing for me. And as she was declining and she passed, then my dog Hank, which you know really well, Hank was diagnosed with mast cell. And I was just like, what is going on here? And I think the thing about this was I felt so lonely, and I felt like there was nothing. And I remember I looked and because of my science background, I'm used to doing like research. So I went through pages and pages and pages of information to see if I could find anything where someone's dog with mast cell lived longer than a year, because they were giving me a year with Hank. And that's where I found one of your blogs. And I believe you're American Bulldog. And I don't recall what her name was. I don't know. I think she was
Zoe Princess Pitbull, Protector of the Universe. Actually, that was the first one. I think Pumpkin was probably the dog I was speaking of, or Pinte. Yeah.
And then I read your blog. And then I remember I signed up for the Crockpot diet. And then I got in on an appointment with you, because I was like, okay, I found somebody. I just wanted to find one person that gave me something, because the loss of Lulu, which was my dog I lost from hemangiosarcoma, it was devastating. And I just felt so overwhelmed and helpless. But now I'm not helpless, because I found a different way. And I named my business after Lulu, for the love of Lulu, holistic pet health coaching, and that's my tribute to her, because she's the one that I didn't know what to do. and Hank was her bonded mate. And he's the one that I figured it out. And that's, like I said, when I found you is when I had some hope. And now I am trained to help other people, and I can give them something they can do to help. Instead of going home from the vet's office and having that feeling of there's nothing you can do. Well, there is something you can do.
Right on. Right on. So we worked together and developed a protocol for Hank, and then how long was Hank with you after that?
Hank was with us for 5 more years.
Right.
Yeah.
and so what were some of the things you were using to support Hank?
So food, the first thing was food. So the Crockpot diet, I put him on the keto version because the keto version starves cancer, carbs feed cancer. So we put him on that. We put him on high doses of omega-3 fatty acids. We put him on, obviously, holistic total body support because that was part of the protocol. I did a Glacier's Peaks test with him to find out everything he was sensitive to. And we removed all of that from the environment. And we also put him on Chinese herbal therapy, which I had never heard of anything like that before. So that was amazing.
And that was a true game changer. So Leslie, I'm not trying to pick on you, but what Karin said is part of the protocol was to put him on holistic total body support, which is a multivitamin, and it is synthetics. So I think there's a lot of stuff going around out there that synthetics are bad and evil and awful. But if your body or your pet's body is starved for nutrition and you have significant food sensitivities, this is a way to deliver nutrients that we know will support the pet without delivering food sensitivities. So I think they are not as well absorbed as food-based supplements, but they're not necessarily bad. So that's one of those things I keep seeing out there because somebody started saying it. It's like, really? So is there too much of them? Are they overused? Probably. But if your pet or you are nutritionally starved, it is a good way to get things into the body. So cool. So, but I mean, still, Hank lived 5 more years.
Yes.
Right? That's just incredible. Quality. And you've had quality. And so somebody just had a bath. But I mean, you've had, sadly, you've had more dogs that you've rescued that develop the same set of tumors. And so you had an incredibly interesting experience with 2 of them recently. And can you share a little bit about what happened with Crystal and her pal?
And Hoagie. So
yes, Hoagie, yeah.
So stressful because what happened, Hoagie, we just adopted Hoagie a little over a year ago, and he had this lump on his side, but it was under the skin, and it felt like kind of like what a water balloon would feel like. And I had experience with mast cell tumors, but this was different. So I took him in and I said, look, I don't know what this thing is, but I asked my vet, I said, look, just go in and aspirate it just to see what it is. So that turned out to be a subcutaneous mast cell tumor. And
crazy.
It presented differently than what I was used to. So Hoagie went in like on a Thursday, and then I had Crystal in on a Friday because she also had a lump we had been keeping an eye on. And it had gotten a little red. And I said, well, let's just get that looked at too, because I'm not taking any chances. We've already been through this before. So we had that aspirated. So she came back positive for a mast cell tumor. And so we scheduled out for Monday and Wednesday for them to have the mast cell tumors removed. So we had a lot happen with just in a short period of time. with Crystal, her mast cell tumor didn't look like anything. It just looked like a lump. It didn't look like what I had noticed before, but then all of a sudden I saw the change where it got kind of red and it looked a little different and it got a little bigger. And I, got her in, and both of them had their removal surgeries. Ironically, it was right on the same side in the same area. Two dogs that are completely unrelated and adopted at totally separate times. But they are both doing really well. And Hoagie just had a cyst removed at the base of his ear this past Monday. But that was just being proactive because of his history.
Cool. Now, one of the things that was astonishing to me was Crystal's pathology report. And I think what you said is, and so you say it because I'll muck it up, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to muck it up too. This is like less than a grade 1. I believe it was.
They knew it was a mast cell tumor, but I think
Right.
it was that they couldn't find any evidence of malignancy. I mean,
correct.
And basically you'd been feeding her and giving her this lifestyle to prevent these tumors. And
Yes.
so while one showed up, it was not malignant. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Right? That's just, so, I mean, how is that for proactive medicine? Can we please give Karin lots and lots of thumbs ups and hearts for what she accomplished? I mean, she got her first buddy to 5 years with known mast cell cancer that was, I think, fairly aggressive. It had a fairly high mitotic index, which is the way that things were measured back in the day, which was all of maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And then now you have 2 dogs which got clean margins, and also 1 report with no evidence of malignancy. That's astronomically beautiful. So well done. So y'all, that's why we're here. This is why the coaches are here, because even though your dog may be predisposed to mast cell cancer, joint disease, all of that stuff, you don't have to let the genetics dictate that dog's future. There are many, many things that you can do to prevent these diseases or minimize the severity of them. So that's just crazy, crazy good stuff. So, Karin's link is up above here in the comments. If you've got bully breeds that you're working with, if you've had this experience with mast cell cancer, she is your woman. So reach out to her, go book a consult with her if you need some help. But part of what we wanted to talk about is kind of what, lumps and bumps show up on so many of our dogs. And thankfully, the majority of them are benign, meaning they don't cause disease. But what do you think are some common causes of lumps or growths on pets?
Well, it can be.
And if you can answer that, you get the Nobel Prize, right?
It can be from old age. I mean, that's, as we age, our turnover of cells can decline. But there's also other reasons. I mean, I because of my biotech background, the way I see it is there's a disruption in the cell cycle somewhere, right? And normally your cells are going to, you'll have new cells that are generated, and the old cells will go through what's called apoptosis, and it's a programmed cell death. And that's a natural way for your body to bring in new cells and get rid of the old cells. But what happens is somewhere around there, that cell cycle, apoptosis doesn't occur. And now all of a sudden you have these cells that are not working properly, and they have a tendency to kind of gum up together, and that will create a mass, or that'll create a lump. It doesn't always have to be cancerous, but when those cells get together, then I think you're more likely that it will become cancerous eventually.
Right on. And even if they're benign, that's telling us that something isn't working correctly. So, we tend to chalk off bumps and lumps to old age, but the truth is that really that's telling you you've got some work to do to support your dog. Because if it's showing up on the skin, there are other things going on internally that you can't see. So that's just really critical. And, and I think we all want to know if we can determine if a lump or a growth on our pets are potentially cancerous or benign. And what's your experience been with this? I mean, you just described Hoagie's thing where he had this weird thing.
Right. So I just think you never really know, I think, well, what we did with one of my dogs, with my dog Ginger, we did a map of lumps for her. We did a map. She had some memory chains and things that you could feel. So we did a map with my vet on that and kept an eye on them. I always would keep checking things to make sure that they didn't change, that they weren't hot, that they didn't get red, that they weren't chewing on anything, they weren't irritated. But I mean, at this point, I usually would go just get the needle aspiration just to make sure. Maybe if it's a skin tag, just keep an eye on it. Just be aware of it. Because with our dog Ginger, when we got her, she had a mass on her toe that was the size of a walnut. And we had that taken off and we had it sent out and it came back clean and we thought we were okay. But unfortunately, we really weren't okay because she ended up with metastasized breast cancer 3 years later. Now, we adopted her at 10, so she was an older dog that had been bred, I couldn't even tell you how many times. But I was in a false sense of security because the lab test came back clean on that lump. And I said, oh, they told me she's all clear. Look, she really wasn't all clear.
Right on. And that's the thing. I mean, I've been fooled. Like there are dogs where they've had this lipoma, a benign fatty tumor, for years, and all of a sudden it shifts, and lo and behold, there's something malignant growing underneath the lipoma. And so that's where, it's just the same lipoma. And if you're not careful, as a veterinarian, about how I aspirate that mass, I may totally miss it. So this is where you need to really be firm with your veterinarians and say, yeah, doc, why don't you try turning that thing a little bit and let's see if we can get some cells from underneath it. And sometimes that's possible and sometimes it's not. So I think that's really critical, is to make sure that things are getting checked, that you know what's there, what size they are to start with, and then keep track of that. And then, what if it's, something you need to do further? What kind of testing did you do with, in this last round with Hoagie and Crystal, in terms of x-rays, ultrasound, that kind of stuff? Or actually, you didn't really need to, did you?
Well, we did do chest x-rays on both of them, just to make sure that nothing had moved on, into something else, metastasized. I had the aspirations done, we had the biopsies taken, and we had them removed, and we had it sent out to the lab. The lab came back, obviously, like I said before, clean margins. But we still keep an eye on things, because like Hoagie did have a lump pop up next to the incision site, and his incision site was like 7 inches long. I mean, this thing was a good size. And I used CBD dog remedy on it and it fell off, and I was like, yay.
Bonus.
Like, I know we have to go back for another one, because it's very common for mast cell tumors to pop up next to where the last one was. It's a very common thing. We had that happen with Hank multiple times. Luckily with Coke, we got it to fall off.
Right on. So, similar to this idea, yes, myrrh, but what's in remedy is frankincense and turmeric. So it's got great, plus CBD. So it's got a great anti-tumor activity. And that's something that's just one of the bases of keeping these things under control. So, and this is a great question. What about tumors in the mouth? We'll pop that back up there. And Debbie, thankfully, again, the majority of them are going to be benign. They're typically what we'd call a benign epulis. But there is one particular tumor type, which is melanoma, that is super bad news. And so that's where, again, sometimes your dog will let you evaluate them pretty easily, and sometimes not. But to really further confuse things, there are both melanotic, meaning filled with melanin, black melanomas, and amelanotic, meaning no pigment melanomas. So this is really where you may need the help of your vet to determine what's going on. But that brings up a whole interesting question too. It's like, if you've got a 14-year-old dog with a tumor in its mouth, what's your end game going to be? So if you think about all the surgery options, chemotherapy, all that stuff, is that where you want to take your 14-year-old dog? Or do you want to simply rely on more natural methods to help control things? And so that's something really critical. And I know that you had to ask yourself that question many times, like, okay, where do I want to go with this? So can you talk a little bit about how you come to that decision about, yes, I'm going for surgery, or no, I'm not going for surgery?
Oh, yes. Well, I look at their health. So for Ginger, was older, and at that point, what was she, like 13, I think? And that was when we just decided to do palliative care. And really it was keeping her as comfortable as possible. I had her on CBD dog heal, I believe, right? High doses of that. I think I was using the PEMF mat with her, and it was just whatever to keep her comfortable.
Cool. And how long do you feel like you were able to keep her comfortable? She had some pretty advanced disease, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately it was. Maybe about 6 months, but considering how bad it was, that was pretty good, I thought.
That's amazing. I mean, because when this stuff gets metastatic, and again, depending on the level of malignancy or sort of aggressiveness, they can be gone within 2 months. So 6 months is definitely good. And your clear goal was to keep her quality of life here and let her fall off the cliff and sort of go very quickly. And that's really how we try to approach it for these guys. Mm-hmm. So yeah, good stuff. But I think that's something that's really important, is to make sure you know where you want to go with this and what you believe will be in the best interest of that pet. So it's definitely a process, and this is, again, where working with a coach can be so helpful for you, because they can tell you, well, you've got this, here's the things you can do. How's your dog doing? How does he or she feel on a daily basis? And then decide what's going to be best for this guy. So yeah, right on. So we've got a couple of questions in here, which is great. And so Heather's asking about her dog that's been getting lipomas for years, and they've all been aspirated, but she's wondering if CBD remedy would help him. And for lipomas, unfortunately, it does not work very well, because the actual cellular structures are very small because they're filled up with fat. But Heather, what does work well is real food, first of all, And I've been using Crockpot diet since 2006 to support pets with cancer. We will see many dogs get on this, and we'll start to see them, drop weight, get leaner, and certainly as they get leaner, the lipomas get smaller. But we'll see the lipomas start to shrink, because ultimately, underlying everything, we're correcting the body's ability to make sure the cells go into apoptosis, that they die off when they're supposed to, and that we're supporting the body's ability to detoxify more efficiently so that it can stop growing these abnormal cells. And then the other thing that can be helpful too is kelp. So in Chinese medicine, kelp softens heart nodules, and so that's been used there. And this one's pretty interesting too. So Ryan and Sarah, soft tissue sarcoma on the sternum. So, this is a whole thing that really you need to work with a coach that can guide you through. But Karin, what would your basic recommendations be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I was reading.
Yeah.
I'm
Process.
reading the comments.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. So what would your basic recommendations for anybody that's got a dog or a cat with cancer be, just to get your feet on the ground and get some support in place for those pets?
Fresh whole foods. Fresh whole foods is number one. You got to get them off the kibble if they're on it.
Right on.
High doses of omega-3 fatty acids, like Ziggler megapause. Right?
Yeah, right on. And then, so soft tissue sarcomas can get a little ugly. So this is where I think for all of us, kind of the way I've been working myself and taught the coaches to work is to go to the underlying mechanism. And so what's one of the biggest underlying mechanisms we need to fix for these guys in terms of dysfunction? So if the gut's out of whack, if we've got dysbiosis present, if we have food sensitivities, if we work to support the pet there, then often we can get these guys some significant improvement and get them feeling better. So that's where I would start, is twofold. One is go to fresh, real food. If you've been feeding raw, and I know this may irkle quite a few folks, but as these guys get older, they don't digest raw as well. And so I ended up using Crockpot to fix a lot of raw fed guts in practice. But just because you've been doing something for years doesn't mean that it still is working. So I think you need to be willing to explore other options. And if you're doing raw, try cooking it. See what happens over the next 2 weeks. And you don't have to, cook it thoroughly through, but at least gently cook it. Help pre-digest some of that protein so that the body can use it more efficiently. So that's where I would start. Support the liver, because the liver is having to take over all the detox processes, and then make sure that this guy is having as much fun as possible, that you're able to keep yourself in a place of enjoying the journey with your dog, no matter what's going on. Because I think a lot of times what happens is we get that cancer diagnosis and we freeze and we go into the fear and the worry, and our dogs feel us do that. And then they're like, oh my God, what's Mom worried about? This is freaking me out. So yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Right on. And Naja is another one of our coaches in training, and her beautiful guy, Tonka, has lumps everywhere. But so it's really a lot to keep up with in terms of removing stuff. So I think that's important, is to do what Karin suggested and do a map, know what they look like, all of that good stuff. And then that way, if something changes, you know where you need to take action in specific. So well done. Cool.
Also, maybe Chinese herbals, right?
Right on.
And phlegm to get things moving.
Right on. Yeah, two famous formulas: Pinellia, Resolve Phlegm, and a variation on something like frankincense relieves soreness. So frankincense and myrrh are two very potent herbals that can be used to help move tumor cells along. And this is an interesting question. Mast cell tumors on eyelids are, I can't recall seeing one, but to be fair, I've not been in clinical practice since 2016. Have you seen any on your guys, or?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this was this aspirated, that that it's an MCT.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think that would be very difficult to aspirate without really being miserably uncomfortable for the dog.
Yeah.
So I think, Leslie, you're going to get your answer shortly by getting it removed. And one of the kind of classic things with mast cell tumors is that when you mess with them, that causes some histamine release and they get red and angry. So if you're seeing this thing go up and down and up and down, that would be more likely to be mast cell tumor. Meibomian cyst or something like that, I think, is more likely. Yeah, and she can't really test it beforehand because trying to stick a needle in an eyelid would just be not a fun process for anybody. So again, this is where, okay, now you know your dog is making some abnormal cells. And so what can we do to support that dog? And that's where Karin went through her list of stuff to work on. So let's see. And Audrey, another one of our coaches, that's it. If we keep in our minds, oh my God, my dog has a mast cell tumor and he's going to die, then your dog will live up to that expectation. So as hard as it is, if you can just take time and stop and sit outside, and like with Hayo, she's been having some problems. So I'm having to remind myself every time I start the worry monster to pick her up and hold her and tell her how much I love her, and that I'm so happy that she's living with us and that we're having this beautiful life in one of our favorite places to be. And I know better and I'm still doing it. So it's just crazy, crazy stuff. So,
yeah. I meditate with mine every morning. We get on the PEMF mat. I play some meditation music. It's this, I think it's Tibetan bowls. It's this noise that's really calming. So I sit with them and I tell them I love them, and I try to clear my head and not bring that in. I don't want to bring the negative energy in, push it away. And I think mindsets, when you have a pet that has a diagnosis like that, I think it's really important, your mindset, that you don't let that diagnosis be a black cloud over your head, and in your home, kind of, spend your time with them, being as present as possible and not in that worry phase, like you said.
Amen. Yeah, so we've been burning lots of Palo Santo and Copal to clear out the evil spirits. Yeah, and that's it. Hayo comes and meditates with me every morning, all of those good things. And that's, for her, that's the PEMF mat has been an amazing, amazing thing. So right on. Cool. I'm going to grab some, head over to our group and circle. And for those of you, many of you are working with us on the Holistic Pet Health group in Facebook, which we've got almost 42,000 people now in the group, which is crazy amazing. And thank you for your support. But we have a private group, which is completely free at this point. We've got some great assets in here, our Holistic Pet Health protocols, mini kidney health course, mini gut health course, and then some amazing downloads so that you've got some basic information about when to spay and neuter, recommended vaccines, when not to go to the ER vet, which will help you build your first aid kit. So this has got a ton of value here, but I just want to pop in here and answer a few questions. So Judy, welcome. And y'all are on the Gulf Coast in Galveston. and that's great to hear that she's a happy girl and enjoying enjoying life along with the mosquitoes and humidity. And Kelly, the calcium actually is a bit higher. So the 666 milligrams per pound of meat is based on 2006 recommendations, which AFCO changed up in 2013. So currently we're at 4,000 milligrams divided by 3.5. So that's about 1,100 milligrams per pound of protein. So to answer this question, I would really need to know how many milligrams of calcium per teaspoon or tablespoon in the product you're using. So if that's 666 milligrams per tablespoon, that would get you, that would still, a cup would be way much. So, but check that. So for instance, the Now product is 1.5 teaspoons, delivers 660 milligrams. So just double check your math on that one. But yeah, it's important to know what you're starting with. That a cup seems like an awful lot for 10 pounds of meat. Back support braces for lumbosacral disease and hip dysplasia. I think the most common thing we think about would be like a help 'em up harness. I don't know that there's a support. Are you aware of any, Karin? Have you had any of these guys you've had to support with
I mean,
back pain?
I had a DM. Dino was my degenerative myelopathy dog, and the help him up harness was what we used until his back end really went down, and then we got him a wheelchair.
And we've got, actually, Naja turned me on to these folks at I think it's Dive, that are custom making prosthetics and wheelchairs for dogs, which is just some amazing stuff. They're 3D printing them, and so they're ultralight, really awesome stuff. So we'll have some more information on that soon as well. Bonnie, welcome. Yeah, exactly. You have to figure out how to communicate clearly and understand what they're saying and working. So I'm not sure where you are in Mexico. That's where I am at the moment in El Pescadero. We're about an hour north of Los Cabos. So you've got quite the crew of 13 cats and 4 dogs. So welcome. Glad to hear you're here. You're doing some homeopathy for these guys and Reiki. Right on. And Brittany, welcome. It's all good that that's amazing that you're married to your best friend. So I think actually we introed you last week, but welcome, glad you're here. There's a couple of questions in the holistic pet health advice, so we'll pop over there as well. Homemade pill pockets. Have you had any success with this?
I think I had discussed this with you in one of our meetings. So I was using agar and peanut butter. I mean, agar, you know, it's like what seaweed base.
It's a seaweed gel, yeah. Exactly.
And cool. You can use it to make it that texture. And you could probably do that with any kind of like minced meat or something, like cook up some meat and mix that in.
Right on. Right now, Hayo's favorite pill pocket is sweet potato. So, yeah. So, I mean, the stuff, if your dog can handle cream cheese, that's great. Liverwurst, that kind of stuff. The dreaded evil Vienna sausages, which I don't know if they're still on the market or not, but that's possible too. And let's pop over here, see what's going on. I think we are it. Yeah. So we did a webinar yesterday to talk to folks about pet health coaching and enrolling in the program. So again, we've got a couple of options. Again, if you need help from a coach, head over to the website and click the Find a Coach tab, and then you'll see all our coaches there. And certainly Karin is listed there. Thank you, 3D Pets. And yeah, I mean, these folks can do amazing stuff. Yeah, Raw's beef liver pate, that always works too. So the deal is you just got to experiment. I think there's a lot of different things out there available, but it's like a lot of times your dog looks at it and goes, not so much, thank you. And the key is testing the palatability of the pill pocket first. So you don't put the medicine in there and you're like, oh, dang it, you got to pick it out. Cool. Karin, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a ball. I'm really excited that you could share your story and your success with people, because I think what you've been able to accomplish and really nail down with what you've done with your own dogs, and now with being able to help other pet parents, has been incredibly important. So again, thank you. Here's a link. Go find coaches. Go look for Karin. Help the girl out. Get her out of her full-time job. That's the next step, is getting everybody transitioned into this profession they love. And or Debbie, we love Micah Dog products, and I think that those are a great place to start. So the Vitality formula is where that's kind of, it's like we know all this, but we forget to tell you sometimes. But that's one of the baselines of our protocols now. So cool. So again, Karin, thank you so much. Glad you could spend time today. You are welcome. We will see you all next week. Until then, keep loving on your pups. Promise me you will go outside and turn your phone off for at least 3 minutes a day and just sit quietly. And check us out in Circle. It's an awesome group going on in there. So until next week, take good